Hello, I'm Deborah Malone, founder of The Internationalist and host of Internationalist Marketing TV. Today's guest is Charlie Chappell, Vice President of Innovation and R&D at the Hershey Company. Charlie, it is always a pleasure to spend time with you, whether it's with chocolate or not, but it is always a pleasure and what a joy to see you with some of my favorite brands behind you. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's so much fun to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. It's we miss talking to you, and there's I I've got to start by saying I don't think that there's that many people who have had the diversity of marketing roles that you have had. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm going to do a quick litany, of product development at Kimberly-Clark, brand management and marketing at P&G, senior roles at Hershey. They span from e-commerce and digital, global marketing excellence, media leadership, and now, of course, innovation and R&D, which you never know, might be a favorite. So just to open it up, a couple of quick questions. Is this what it takes to be a well-rounded, future-driven marketing leader, to have that diversity of roles? And what's the lessons? What's the lessons?
Yeah, it never was something that I laid out a long career path and say this is where I would end up being. I think, like anybody, you go on a journey and you figure out what are the things you enjoy doing, what are you good at, and then how can you take that to different roles. And no matter what role I've been, the ones where, I've enjoyed the most and had the greatest success is ones where I've had to innovate, where I've gone into a space where there wasn't a clear path forward. A lot of things were changing and having to go figure that out. Whether that was when I was leading media here at Hershey, it was through the whole digital transformation, from leaving linear television. And like every year was different because new apps were coming out, the ecosystem was changing, so it was constant innovation. And so, like when I switched into this job, which is innovation, and it's like I always describe it to people now. Basically, I'm Willy Wonka. Every new item that comes out of the Hershey company, it comes from the great people that work on my team, and they're phenomenal folks, food scientists, marketers, nutritionists, engineers, that make all the magic happen. And it's sort of the same thing. It's still innovation. You got to see where the puck is going. I talk a lot about, you got to be able to see around corners to see what's coming next. You got to decide, is this new trend just a flash in the pan, or is this something material that's going to change? And I just found through my career that that's what I enjoy doing. You do that after a while, you start to recognize patterns and you start to be able to see, yeah, that's going to mean something. That's something we ought to go after versus the things that aren't. And so that's what I've seen. And I love having all the different experiences because I can draw from all of those, even to my role now or anything else, in strange ways that I wouldn't have been able to if I hadn't, done the various things that I've done in my career. So it's really been a lot of fun.
No, and a lot of people think that innovation is the essence of marketing,
Yeah,
or let's say the essence of great marketing,
yeah.
because it has to be memorable. You do have to keep up with times, and if there is a time of change, I mean, we seem to be constantly living through times of change, but they only seem to be accelerating. So the skills are just great. But let's talk a minute about some fun, pure innovation,
Yeah.
because I noticed the launch of your Shackalicious extra large XL gummies. And of
Yeah.
course, it's spring, which means all of the different Reese's peanut butter cups, this time with spring sprinkles, and
Yes.
Kit Kat bunnies, and even Twizzler bunnies, which is an interesting thought. So many of these product innovations, though, are informed by smart marketing, trending tastes, customer interests, seasonality. It, I know innovation's been at the heart of your career, but is there a process?
Yeah, it really, particularly when it's product innovation, everything starts with sort of looking at what we call a big consumer demand landscape to see like, in its most basic, it's like, what are consumers looking for? And are they satisfied with the product offerings that they have available to them today? And where the real true innovation is found is where you find that there's a demand, but they're dissatisfied with the products that they see, that they have available to them today. And then you go develop something that meets that. I mean, whether it's coming from a big company or, an influencer or a founder story, that's at the heart of innovation, what drives it at the end of the day. So yeah, so you're looking for that. That's the very strategic. But then there's also like the opportunistic. So like you talk about things like the things we do for the various seasons that come up, and it's like, I don't know, sprinkles on a Reese's peanut butter cup sounds pretty cool for Easter. And it's a seasonal item. It's out there for a short period of time, and it brings surprise and delight to consumers. And so you also, especially like in confection in particular, you get to have a lot of fun when you do that as well. So it's a combination. It really is that balance of bringing the strategic approach, which any marketer could really appreciate, with that, in this particular case, that serendipitous fun and ideas. And when those two things come together, that's where you really have the magic.
So Charlie, you do talk about seasonality and
Yeah.
you talk about that in connection with innovation. I remember a while ago you used to mention that Halloween was Hershey's Super Bowl, but it also appears now that there's a lot of different Hershey brands that are connected to various holidays throughout the year. So is it still October is the big time or not so much?
Absolutely. October is still and Halloween, and it actually can even start into September as well. Is really, what we call our Super Bowl. It's the time of year when you have most folks in the US who will engage in the category. There's some people who only kind of come into the confection category one time of the year, and it's around Halloween. And it's either they're like, oh, it's Halloween, and they may not be participating in trick or treat, but they see like our Reese's pumpkin shapes, which they're like, oh, I remember those are so yummy, so they'll do those, or they're going to Halloween parties or something with their kids, or kind of the big thing, which is the trick or treat at the end of the day. And we really work at how are we bringing, our full portfolio to that, even beyond what you would think of with just the traditional candy as well. We have a salty snacks business now. We have Skinny Pop and Dots and Pirates Booty are all part of our salty portfolio. And, so we've been working to, okay, how do we bring those even into trick or treat? And I know even in my house, where, when you're a Hershey household at Halloween, people have expectations. So we have a lot of candy, it's full size. And I put out Pirates Booty the last couple of Halloweens, and it's fun to see, ooh, that's something different. And then the kids go grab that and put that in their bag. So yeah, it just opens up so many opportunities for different kinds of innovation and things that you can do that it makes it a lot of fun.
Oh, that makes me laugh because we in our town we do a Halloween parade and so on, and friends of ours are right along the route. And the funniest thing is when families give out full sizes, like it's like this little thing with the kids. Oh my God, the White House over there, full sizes.
Yeah.
And it's the funniest thing. It is the funniest thing.
What?
Well, listen,
Yeah.
you can't, so it just as I say, it brings the smile back, it brings laughter back, and it's just so special. But it seems today I can't stop laughing, right? But today you can't have a conversation about anything without mentioning AI, and I'm just curious, does that play a role in your approach to innovation?
Yeah, AI is one of those things as I talked about where you have to look for trends and assess them and say, okay, is this going to be material and meaningful or not? And this is one where I think it absolutely is. And it takes me back to when digital media first showed up. And and I go back to the first web pages, the first social media platforms, everything. At first, you can tell that it's going to make a major difference, but it's really clunky and messy in the beginning. So I think that's where we are with the use of AI right now, and no matter what part of marketing that it is. And so, for me, it's about, it's another sort of pivot in my career where it's like, you got to understand this if you want to stay relevant. And you have to figure out where are you going to apply it, into what aspects of what you do to get something better than what you've got before, and where are the areas where it's just not going to make sense. And really, the only way to do that is through experimentation and start to figure out. And then when you start to see something work, you double down on it and get really, really good at it. I am, it is fascinating to me a little bit. I can sometimes be a little, cynical at times. Like I, every, I swear every in-mail I get in LinkedIn is about AI and from a million different partners, blah, 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 whatever it may be. We've got to, and sometimes I wonder if like, if they're just selling me the same tool, they're just calling it AI now. So for me at this point it's like the bar's gone up in terms of what uniquely does someone think AI can do before I'll really engage the time and have the conversation as we're starting to figure out how to apply it across all areas of our business.
No, I think you're right. And I think that what I'm also hearing is that you say across all areas, it seems that there's a lot of personal experimentation right now just to get people familiar, but it has to be across the enterprise at some point if you're really going to use it well. Yeah.
No, I think in the personal experimentation, you're exactly right. I mean, again, I go back to when social media first appeared, you needed to get your own Facebook account or MySpace, how far back you want to go. You have to try it for yourself to understand it and then figure out how to apply it for business. So absolutely. And I've been encouraging my teams to start to use, and I'm like, and I'm not biased to any one or the other. I'm like, try them all. And you come back and tell me like if it's a Gen AI tool that's out there for public consumption, try them and see what you're using. What are the use cases you're using it for from a personal life? And then you figure out how to apply that in the work session. While, of course, you have to bring in all the remind people of all the use cases of where it can go wrong. And there's stories out there of people who've been tripped up over it. And so, it's just helping people to understand there are some barriers you don't want to cross, but how do you continue to learn and experiment on this to figure it out? Because if you don't, you're going to be left behind. There's no doubt about
No,
that.
you're right. And I think we have to experiment to get the proper perspective on it in terms of how it can augment what we do or how
Yeah.
it can detract in some ways. If you're a writer, you can also see where it gets it wrong a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I just keep telling myself, and this is the whole thing, like figure out how to automate the stuff that doesn't add value you don't really like to do. That's just a general rule in life. So you can really spend your time on the things that you're either really good at, going to have the greatest impact, or you enjoy doing the most. So, that to me, that's one of the ways that you start to use this to your advantage.
Well, you bring up something interesting as you talk about, digital transformation and social media and so on and so forth. You have seen tremendous industry change over the course of your career. I mean, we're of an age where we've probably seen more change over time. Again, in business, I'm not
Yeah.
talking about world wars or anything else, but what do you think are some of the most positive ones that we've seen? And you know, and is marketing itself, I know that your innovation to me is still a major part of marketing. Is
Absolutely.
marketing a different business than when you started?
I think fundamentally, no.
Hmm.
I think you still, as you go to the core, and I think the models have all changed. You and I are around for the four Ps. Do the four Ps still apply? Yes, no. The foundations of marketing stay the same. And I mean that if you go back to the beginning, like what is a brand? A brand is a promise. Like when brands were created, you go back to the very beginning, they were a promise. They were a promise of product quality when they were first put out because you didn't know there's all this sham products that were around, and it's like, well, no, I was at P&G before. This ivory soap, you see ivory soap I can trust. This other one I've never heard of before, I don't know if I can trust it. So I think brands still today are based on trust, and it could be a brand as we think about it today in CBG, or the brand of a person. Like influencers are now becoming brands in and of themselves, and you still see this. If you lose trust in that person, then you don't trust their brand anymore and it falls down. So I think that's still there. I think the fundamentals of people clearly understanding your brand and what it stands for, this whole idea of having distinctive assets so people recognize you, they don't have to think hard about it. None of that has changed. I think something good that's come out of all of this is honestly a lot of the barriers to entry have come down. Now, as a legacy, being at a big legacy CPG, that means you can have more competition coming in. But at the same time, I think it makes you take up your game and makes you even better in what you do. So, that's what I think has really been a positive for the industry, and it's forced us all to be even stronger at what we do.
That's really well said. I like that, particularly, as a legacy person. But at the same time, I think that's what makes legacy brands better when they do think,
Yeah.
as we've all heard, as they when they think like startups or think of how they're going to be disrupted. It keeps you sharp. There's no question about it. Well, look, I promised something about purpose, and we don't have to take a lot of time in it. Although I know that we're going through a little bit of a transition, but look, obviously Hershey was built on not only innovation, but Milton Hershey's sense of giving back to the community. Now, that certainly is an example of corporate purpose. We've talked about brand purpose could be something fun. And that can be the essence or the core, as you say, of what a brand can be. So I'm just curious as to where we are now. You've seen so much. How do brands embrace purpose? And then you mentioned the how easy it is to enter. We've seen newer brands starting with missions, even in the chocolate category. What Tony Chocolonely, or and they've made mistakes. They've made some good things happen. So it's very interesting in where we are right now.
Yeah. I think again, you reference here at Hershey, our, purpose goes back to our founder, in Milton Hershey. The story, for those that may not know, he was a serial entrepreneur who failed his first two startups, sold his third for $1 million in the late 80s, and used it to fund his fourth startup, which was the Hershey Company, because he wanted to disrupt the chocolate category, which at the time was only a premium product, and develop a chocolate bar that he could sell for 5 cents and ship across the entire United States. So he was democratizing a luxury item. And long story short, he came back to the community. He really believed in that. And, to this day, he ended up, he and his wife couldn't have any children. So he started a school for underprivileged children that's now called the Milton Hershey School, that now houses, I may get the number wrong, it's like over 1,000 kids between the grades of kindergarten to seniors in high school, who it's a beautiful boarding school campus, and they don't pay a dime to go there. And it's right here in Hershey, it's right down the road. And so he put everything he owned in a trust. The trust runs the school. The trust is the biggest shareholder in the Hershey Company. So we have an inherent purpose that's in everything that we do. So for us, it's kind of like just breathing, because it's been a part of the company forever. I think for other brands and other companies, what you've got to do is to say, if you're going to do this, you have to be committed to it no matter what. And I think that's the hardest thing, especially as pressures change and come, to say, are you really? Most of the time you find it in founder stories, because the founder, we're a founder story at the end of the day. I think you really have to commit to that. And I think what's hard for brands to maybe say, well, now I'm going to develop a purpose, and then they got to stick with it. The problem is the brand people keep changing. And so there's not that one anchor point to like say, no matter what, we're not going to veer off of this. I think that's where, it's harder for brands that don't start that way to kind of have one and go forward with it. But that's at least what I've seen.
Yeah, yeah. And it never works when it's kind of bolted on just so that,
Yeah.
to use a cliche, so that you're checking the boxes on doing what's current. No, it has to be, and another buzzword that we all overuse, has to be authentic. So listen, as we get toward the end here, what do you think are the most significant challenges that marketers face today? When they're addressing change, or they're trying to innovate, let's say meaningfully as opposed to authentically. But what do you think the challenges are?
Yeah, goodness, there's so many. Short term versus long term. I think that is one that's out there. I think a second is, why are you actually doing it? Is it because I'm coming from a business, it's a turnaround business situation? Is it because we truly have a passion? Is it, to really understand the purpose behind, you talk about purpose again, why the innovation is particularly happening. I think one of the other challenges we face is we're just in a society where the definition of truth is more spongeable than it was, and that's not a political statement; it's just a fact. And folks are leveraging that in different ways. You can just say something, and if you say it enough and loud enough, people believe it. And I don't, and you see brands doing this too. So, you can embrace that and use that. Or is that the way you want to make your money? I think that's a choice that people have to make. So, I think a lot of it comes down to why are you doing it and what's your purpose for doing it, and trying to stay true to that. So that, I always tell people, like, in innovation, I'm at a point in my career where it's like it's more about legacy. Like, you look back over your career and what that you did is still out there. you know, and it just didn't go away, whether that be a new product you introduced, or an advertising campaign you created, or a company you started, or something along those lines. Like, I don't know, for me, the greatest pride I have is to look back and walk in a store and say, there was something I did 20 years ago, and there's still a version of it on the shelf. That to me is when your impacted, your innovation has truly had a big impact. And I don't know, that for me, that's just motivation.
No, it's well said, and it also expresses the passion that you have for doing it,
Yeah,
not only for the best of your ability, but doing it to serve the people that really want that product. And I hope we never lose sight of that.
I agree.
Well, so on that note, what's next for you and the Hershey Company?
Well, I wish I could tell you, but
But
that's
you'd
sort of
have to, but you'd
amazing.
have to kill me, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, or
exactly,
kill
exactly.
death by chocolate. Yes.
No, we've had a fun year of launching new things. You talk about the Shackalicious brand. In fact, we just met with Shaquille yesterday or 2 days ago, talking about the future of that. We've launched things like Jolly Rancher ropes, which is a new form, getting into freeze-dried Jolly Ranchers, is a unique thing to go out there and try. We got out on that trend. It's a very different way to eat a Jolly Rancher. And things we're doing along with that. We've got cool, Reese's is always big. We've bought 2 years ago, we launched Reese's with caramel. It was like, finally, the three top flavors that people want in confection are chocolate, peanut butter, and caramel. We finally put them together. Launched it with a Super Bowl ad a couple of years ago, so that's going well. So it's just continuing to fuel that innovation that's coming along, and there's going to be more coming. Oh, and I like Dots. Honestly, Dots. We bought the brand. Just that's been so much fun, like playing out the flavor profiles on that. There's a garlic Parmesan Dots that, if you haven't tried it, tastes like an Olive Garden breadstick.
Which people
Basically.
say is the best thing about Olive Garden. Yes,
Exactly,
yes,
exactly.
yes.
And I know someone who works at Olive Garden, and I told them about it, and then they tried it. They said, "Yeah, you did, you got it." So, no, so there's more coming
All
later
right.
this
Well,
year. Can't wait to.
we will
I'll put it
keep.
out on LinkedIn when it
Oh,
comes out,
excellent.
and yeah,
Excellent. Well, look, it's always a pleasure. And thank you so much. The only sadness, well, one of the sadnesses about not being in the same place at the same time is that we can't take a candy break right now, or a salty snack break. So
very
anyway, thank
true.
you so much. And we will keep tuned as to what's coming down. Okay.
Fabulous.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The Internationalist focuses on the continual reinvention of marketing by highlighting inspirational marketers around the world and their ideas as they move the industry forward. Internationalist Marketing TV shares these perspectives through interviews and personal stories. Thanks so much for watching. If you find this kind of content helpful, please click like or subscribe. Again, thanks so much.